Well, welcome. Thank you for joining our program today. This program is presented in partnership with the Santa Cruz Public Libraries. We thank our partners, library partners, Sarah Jones, Victor Willis, and Jessica Goodman for their assistance today in helping us with the Zoom and in-person program. If you would like to attend in person, we are streaming the program in a large monitor in the upstairs meeting room in the downtown Santa Cruz Library. Our society members are available after the program to answer questions that attendees might have. It is a great way to participate and in the company of fellow genealogists. For details, contact our society or join us at 1 p.m. in the library upstairs meeting room. The Society's DNA Special Interest Group met earlier today and will hold its next meeting on Tuesday, December 5th at 10 a.m. The DNA SIG meets in person in the upstairs meeting room at the downtown Santa Cruz Library. All the handouts from the DNA SIG can be accessed via the GSSCC webpage under the categories Lecture Recordings and Handouts. The Society's Genealogists Helping Genealogists focus group was held on Tuesday, December 12th from 1:30 to 2:30 in the genealogy room in the downtown Santa Cruz Library. This is a small group environment with fellow genealogists to discover new strategies, share knowledge, spark ideas, and shed light on genealogy topics. I invite you to join us. Our members received our quarterly newsletter a few weeks ago. It's not too early, though, to be thinking about the articles you might contribute to our next newsletter. Please send articles about your genealogical endeavors, brick walls, successes, research tips to our editor, Lisa Robinson, by December 15th. I have a couple more announcements for upcoming programs. In lieu of our regular program in December, our members will get together for our annual holiday luncheon on December 7th at Seascape Golf Course in Aptos. An email invitation was sent to our members. For more information, please contact our Genealogy Society. Final date to RSVP is November 29th. Our first program of the new year will be held on Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. Gail will host a yearly genealogical writing session. This session will be in person in the downtown library in the upstairs meeting room. Gail will present Drawing Out Your Memories and will focus on some strategies for evoking personal memories so we could write about them. We also hope to make this a hybrid event with an in-person presenter, which will be a bit different than our Zoom programs have been in the last 3 years. Now on to today's program. We are delighted to welcome Ross Eric Gibson, who will present a program on why Santa Cruz isn't Los Angeles yet. Mr. Gibson will detail some of the hard-fought battles that have helped Santa Cruz avoid overdevelopment and suburban sprawl. He will examine the people and events that have helped to preserve this unique character of Santa Cruz. Ross Gibson is a county historian for the Santa Cruz Sentinel newspaper. He has written numerous history reports as an historic agricultural consultant, served at the Santa Cruz Historic Preservation Commission, the County Landmark Committee, the County Museum Board of Trustees, and the 1989 Earthquake Recovery Committees for Vision Santa Cruz. He also writes books, plays, and musical, and has presented numerous local lectures and tours. Please join me in giving Ross Eric Gibson a warm Zoom welcome.
Thank you so much, and thanks for joining me. We shall start right off with why Santa Cruz isn't Los Angeles yet. Since the late 19th century, Santa Cruz and Santa Clara were described in superlatives for natural beauty and agricultural prestige. San Jose was the garden city in the midst of the Valley of Heart's Delight as one of the nation's leading fruit districts. Santa Cruz was the honeymoon coast where the mountains meet the sea and a capital of fruit, flowers, poultry, and mushroom production. Los Angeles had long been a shining example of the California lifestyle, stage-set architecture, producing a sense of place, homes with porches and patios oriented to outdoor living in a garden landscape of nature and agriculture. Yet after World War II, a housing shortage for returning veterans had Los Angeles farmland bought up for suburban sprawl, needing freeways to link these outlying areas, with shopping centers designed around parking lots to accommodate a booming car population, and architecture lacking detail to be quick and cheap and so anonymous in style, it spawned a signage blight. Chain stores and smokestack industries decentralized cities along freeway corridors of suburban sprawl. By 1960, 59% of Los Angeles was paved for streets and parking, with freeways growing to a dozen lanes wide and smog a part of the car lexicon. In 1950, the San Jose City Council announced it intended to become the Los Angeles of the North. Land speculators swarmed into Santa Clara County, buying up cheap farmland to be revalued as urban subdivisions. Longtime farmers, trying to keep their prestige as the nation's quality fruit capital, gained protections through the 1954 Santa Clara County zoning amendment for agriculture-only districts. Outraged, the San Jose City Council quickly annexed property, county roads, and school districts into the city by any means possible. In the spring of 1955, the farmers got the state legislature to pass an act preventing annexation of farmland or adjoining county roads without the property owner's consent. And this would have worked. But San Jose took advantage of the 90 days before the act became law to expand its borders to an area over 200 miles long, enclosing less than 20 square miles. The frenzy of acquisitions frightened communities neighboring San Jose, who, for the sake of home rule, incorporated into 7 new cities. Heavy industry moved in with legions of workers overtaxing the aquifers and causing a water crisis. By the late 1950s, fly-by-night developers maximized profits by building inferior, ticky-tacky tract homes, which fell apart so quickly they became instant slums. While the FHA, Federal Housing Administration, was intended to aid homeowners, it was shady developers who sought their low-interest insured mortgages to build hundreds of homes for a no-risk profit. And lax veteran administration oversight allowed development on known floodplains, building houses the U.S. government would have to repurchase after inevitable flooding and then repair for resale. Santa Cruz County was drawn into San Jose's overdevelopment psychosis following the Christmas flood of 1955. While the flood was statewide, it flooded downtown Santa Cruz, Ocean Street, Soquel, Capitola, and Watsonville. The designated flood recovery redevelopment continued for over 30 years, brought to an end only by the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake, which prompted the next 30 years of recovery to be earthquake recovery. Following the 1955 flood, shady San Jose developers made forays into Santa Cruz County, buying up large Victorians, tearing them down, and squeezing as many cheap tract homes onto the site as possible. This caused a backlash against the loss of a neighborhood's character-defining landmarks. The photo shows the Grover Mansion, which was demolished for tightly packed tract homes. A riverside neighborhood was cleared away, and county offices moved from the beloved Romanesque County Courthouse on Cooper Street to the hated County Government Center, a new brutalism-style monstrosity resembling a penitentiary and built as a nuclear fallout shelter. Oppressively impersonal, its offices were exposed ductwork, resembled the bureaucratic police state depicted in the movie Brazil. Its concrete walls defied hanging shelves, and piled up boxes often adorned the sides of offices. But city planners seemed oblivious to the outrage, wanting developers to carry out similar modernization of Santa Cruz. It was proposed to abandon the county's leading industries of tourism and agriculture, calling tourism shabby, both seen as stumbling blocks to extending development onto parklands, wilderness, and farms. Santa Cruz would become the city of industry, or the Detroit of the West, depending upon the sales pitch, through a proposed 11-mile corridor of factories along the rail shipping lines between Santa Cruz and Davenport, surrounded by a sprawling suburbia of tract homes. A proposed city-county zoning ordinance to prevent residential encroachment on potential industrial sites failed to pass, as any development was considered good development. Yet, despite some promotions in favor of industrial jobs, the local economy was tourist-oriented and not easily dismantled. Tourism was high volume and low impact, where civic improvements and preserving scenery strengthened the trade. When Wrigley Gum and Lipton Tea came to Santa Cruz, they did so because of tourism, providing factory tours as part of their outreach to the public. Santa Cruz planned to annex Scotts Valley, Live Oak, and Wilder Ranch for high-density urban development, ban agriculture and ranching within the city limits, dump passenger rail for a network of 4-lane freeways along Westcliff Drive, over Neri Lagoon and Beach Hill to Ocean Street, along the edge of the university, through Pogonip, and through De La Viega Park. Downtown Santa Cruz would be demolished for high-rise office buildings, apartment towers, massive parking lots, and chain stores. Westcliff and Beach Hill were envisioned as a Miami Beach row of waterfront skyscrapers, gas stations, fast food joints, while the new UC Santa Cruz campus was planned as a towering Manhattan in the Redwoods. From a post-World War II perspective, this was seen as highly practical and part of a national trend for urban renewal, gutting cities, targeting ethnic neighborhoods for slum clearance, with suburban sprawl, freeway development, and polluting industries seen as badges of progress. Development pressures were such that farmers couldn't afford to keep farmland priced at urban subdivisions, nor rural property owners keep trees on their property taxed as unharvested lumber rather than shade, ecology, or wilderness. New development required eliminating roads to make superblocks, which provided room for massive parking lots. Yet these were not public parking lots, but destination-only lots. The first example of this was Albertson Long's shopping center, now CVS and Trader Joe's. These businesses turned their doorless, windowless backs on a busy front street, creating dead zones in the pedestrian landscape and a lack of interaction with existing downtown businesses. Freeway planners were demolishing a row of Victorian mansions on Mission Street, building the freeway entrance, and Chestnut Street cut-through. The freeway entrance was supposed to create an underpass for Evergreen Street with its sports field and parks. But instead, kids had to take a couple of mile detour around the dangerous freeway entrance to reach the park. In 1963, neighbors rose up to stop more freeways in town, saving the A.P. Swanton Mansion on Mission Street to preserve local character. Fearing an industrialized Santa Cruz would be bad for tourism, businessmen formed SCOPE, the Santa Cruz Organization for Progress and Euthenics. Euthenics means well-being from a better environment. Their stated goal was, quote, to retain, enhance the human values, the natural beauty, the clean air, the fine old trees, the historic values and areas and architecture, the open space, the public safety, the absence of traffic noise, the rural atmosphere, and the distinct individuality, character, and charm of this community of Santa Cruz County, unquote. They proposed guidelines for landscaped freeways that blended into the scenery and avoided being routed through the urban core. Chuck and Esther Abbott had come to Santa Cruz to retire in 1963, attracted by its natural beauty, Victorian elegance, and pedestrian lifestyle. They were shocked when they saw downtown landmarks being remodeled into blank-walled boxes without character. They felt the downtown landmarks had more value being restored, as this level of detail and craftsmanship could not be easily replicated on today's market. Businessmen agreed, saying the tourist economy depended on people seeing Santa Cruz as a unique place worth going, rather than nothing different than what they could find in their hometowns. Chuck's vision was to turn the downtown into a national historic district landscaped with a Victorian Garden Mall. Through gentle persuasion, Chuck gained the support of the majority of businessmen, and the mall was constructed in 1968, opening a year later as the Pacific Garden Mall. Meanwhile, a backlash to Santa Cruz annexation plans came as Live Oak complained that it would lose its world-famous floral, egg, and mushroom industries. Live Oak residents feared the county would dump its unwanted housing projects on its farmland, even as 41st Avenue, Brown's Bull Branch, and Vetterly Brothers Begonia Farm were annexed into the new city of Capitola, which was founded in 1949. Scotts Valley's Sky Park Airport was owned by the city of Santa Cruz, but Scotts Valley residents resisted Santa Cruz annexation efforts by voting to incorporate as a city. The claim was that Scotts Valley could keep its rural charm and its airport if they voted for cityhood in 1964. But the election results were challenged in the belief the cityhood campaign was actually funded by development interests. Scotts Valley incorporated in 1966 and then closed its airport, which cityhood was supposed to protect. The proposed 1969 Wilder Ranch development was called a bedroom community for San Jose, with 10,000 homes expected to double the population of Santa Cruz and turn Mission Street into commuter gridlock. Santa Cruz bridled at bearing the brunt of schools, utilities, and city services for commuters, while their employers' business taxes were left over the hill. The same year, Palo Alto assumed losing its foothills to housing was inevitable and commissioned a plan to create the most beneficial, environmentally sensitive development. They were shocked at their consultant's findings, which said, if the cost of schools, roads, police, and fire facilities and other municipal items were added up, the total investment would so far exceed any tax revenues the area could produce that buying the land for open space would be cheaper. Thus, the most economical environmental design would be no design at all. Quoting California Tomorrow, page 257, 258. So the land was left undeveloped. The proposed Wilder Ranch subdivision brought community opposition over these same issues and conclusions, and in 1974, the property was saved as state park open space. Hoping to alleviate Santa Cruz County housing needs, Watsonville built affordable housing for agricultural workers, yet some feared that it ended up as commuter housing. Over the years, periodic plans were proposed for massive industrial development on Coyote Valley farmland in South Silicon Valley. When San Benito, Monterey, and Santa Cruz counties complained that these plans produced a massive housing deficit that would send an invasion of commuters to these other counties, the San Jose City Council said it was not their concern, and other counties would have to fend for themselves. That was a turning point for many. Today's affordable housing crisis is nationwide, and places which have overbuilt, like Los Angeles, San Jose, and San Francisco, have been no more successful in making home prices affordable than those that haven't, and often have sacrificed a way of life. For Santa Cruz, the chief source of our housing demand is out-of-county commuters and the University of California admitting more students than they have on-campus housing. In this turbulent history, Santa Cruz has retained its quality of life, agricultural open space, wilderness areas, and tourist charm, all of which contribute to the high demand for housing here. How to gain one without losing the other is the balancing act that we face. First of all, Santa Cruz is the smallest rural county in the state. It has been made smaller by San Mateo County annexing our northern section in 1868. Second, large portions of the county are protected as parks, wilderness preserves, and agricultural land banks. Add to that a portion that is unbuildable due to steep hillsides, narrow canyons, crumbling bluffs, slides, floodplains, alluvial soil subject to liquefaction, and low-lying areas prone to tsunami and sea level rise, plus dense forests vulnerable to fires. This, by the way, is the model in the Big Basin Museum that was destroyed in the 2020 CZU Lightning Complex fire. And while Santa Cruz is the one county that naturally produces all its own water, resources are limited, and overdraft of our aquifers can cause saltwater intrusion, destroying that source of water forever. We were in a water crisis during the last drought, when it was made clear we either need more storage facilities, such as injecting treated wastewater into our aquifers, or massively increasing our water rates to desalinate water at high energy use. Holy Roman Empire Joseph II, 1741 to 1790, summarized his enlightened despotism as everything for the people, nothing by the people. Yet Americans who called British colonialism a form of despotism created in 1776 a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Meanwhile, on the West Coast, Villa de Branciforte was founded in 1797 as California's third and last Spanish settlers community in an area now known as East Side Santa Cruz. Yet the promised goods, homes, and privileges were unmet, leaving the settlers in dire poverty. They found only resentment from the padres, punishment from the soldiers, and indifference from the provincial government. Without anyone to represent their interests, in 1801, they took matters into their own hands to elect their own representatives, making Branciforte the birthplace of democracy in Spanish California. The villa was among the first to call for ending the mission system and independence from the Spanish Empire. Yet the yoke of colonialism has reemerged at times in our history when government decides it can't trust the voters. The excesses of eminent domain in the 1950s and 60s drew a groundswell of opposition over condemning freeway rights-of-ways through towns, condemning ethnic neighborhoods for urban renewal, demolishing historic landmarks, with polluting industries threatening natural habitats. At the same time, the corporate international style proposed cities without a past, feeling everything clashed with the uniformity and institutional look of corporate international style. Tract home developments and housing projects were laid out on the bedroom community model, lacking shopping centers, churches, or community centers. So most community gatherings were to take place outside the neighborhood. Santa Cruz's first skyscraper was the Palomar Hotel, built by Andy Bollock, who believed exceptional design was the only thing that can justify building anything this prominent. The hotel has artwork to help define its location, as humanist architecture is intent on defining individuality and a sense of place, compared to the anonymity of freeway vernacular design. In 1960, there was a proposal to develop Lighthouse Field as Court of the Seven Seas, a a convention center designed by the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation. It would have eliminated Westcliff Drive from Pelton Street to Columbia Street and encircle a massive lawn area. A couple of years later, much of Lighthouse Field forest was cut down to begin development. Wanting to get in on the magic, the bluff at Westcliff and Beach Street was demolished in 1963 to build a cinder block motel called Dream Inn. Its restaurant and bar interiors were designed in a Frank Lloyd Wright style and could host conventions. But in 1967, the Court of the Seven Seas plan was abandoned due to financial problems. A new plan in 1968 was to build a hotel with a New England Village shopping center, all 1 to 3 stories in height on Lighthouse Field. Then in 1970, TMI Corporation hired Hilton Hotel, who planned a freeway vernacular style complex with skyscrapers up to 13 stories tall. This project wanted Westcliff Drive designed as a 4-lane freeway with a median and zoned strip commercial to allow gas stations, hamburger stands, and Miami Beach style high-rise apartments. While this was going on, in 1972, the Dream Inn began building an 11-story slab tower wing, which one critic compared to a monolithic ice cube tray. The city council decided that they needed height limits, while in November 1972, state voters approved the Coastal Act establishing a coastal commission to regulate developments such as these. The Dream Inn stopped building at 10 stories, leaving its elevator shaft cantilevered above the unbuilt 11th floor. Because of massive local opposition, the Hilton Hotel public meeting had to be held in the 2,500-seat Civic Auditorium. Westsiders complained the Westcliff Freeway would wipe out all coastal homes. Townsfolk regarded the towers as too tall. Naturalists wanted to preserve the last open headland on the coast. And even businesses complained that, far from supporting local commerce, the site's remote location would take business away from them. Yet, on a 4-3 vote, the city council approved the project. A year later, the project failed at the Coastal Commission on a 9-3 vote and was finally dropped. After that, through the work of local activists, the Lighthouse Field was protected as a state park. In 1970, bipartisan approval established CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, signed by Governor Ronald Reagan, with a national version signed by the same year by President Richard Nixon. Also, 15 other states drew up their own protections based on the California version. CEQA was created to protect the state's important natural, scenic, and historic resources, plus the local quality of life. CEQA required environmental impact reports to identify the type and degree of harm such projects might cause. If impacts were identified, mitigations must be proposed. Such mitigations were not allowed to be a museum exhibit or a pamphlet recalling what a wonderful landmark it was, but rather mitigating the impacts in the actual environment. Such mitigations were supposed to be expressed in alternate versions of the project, that lessened or eliminated the impacts. Developers often produce their own studies to claim landscapes and buildings weren't worth protecting. This gave rise to historic building surveys to give definitive local and national designations for historic structures. In restoring our historic downtown, we discovered or rediscovered the humanist townscapes that put the individual at the center of the universe. Architecture and open space were designed around pedestrians with convenient walking distance, what made a town a community. This contrasted with the car culture designing communities for their convenience of automobiles, not pedestrians. During the post-1989 earthquake recovery planning, Roma design consultants said that the benefits of keeping older buildings is that their construction and financing is all paid off, allowing more affordable lease prices for apartments, offices, and stores. This supported mom and pop stores, businesses with decidedly local flavor, niche marketing for a tourist economy, or incubators for startup businesses. Leases in new construction require prices affordable mostly to chain stores. Yet getting big bucks tenants is not guaranteed, as such stores can sit vacant for a long time, depending upon location, walk-by traffic, or negatives like cold shadows. One year I took the open studios tour and discovered a sleeping space at the back of an industrial building. The artist said that it was so hard to find affordable housing in Santa Cruz that he improvised what was actually an illegal usage. This made me upset. Santa Cruz prides itself in being an artist community, and yet these people who give Santa Cruz this important distinction are being priced out of town. Being on the Historic Preservation Commission at the time, I remembered a successful conversion of an historic hide barn into artist studios and offices. So when Saul's Tannery closed in 2001, I knew a lot of the industrial equipment could be used by artists, and proposed in the Sentinel that the tannery be made into a live-work complex. Fortunately, I wasn't the only one with this idea, and it became a successful prototype for similar ventures. Just as farm workers, clergy, and teachers are provided designated housing, it is worthwhile to target affordable housing to vital elements of our community. Santa Cruz has been affordable due to summer cottages, bungalow courts, and accessory dwelling units. What is now called tiny homes was a Santa Cruz County tradition known as steamer trunk cottages, with fold-away features like a steamer trunk placed in a garden setting. The cottages were small because people came to enjoy outdoor living. Capitola shows the enduring charm of narrow streets with playhouse-scale cottages geared for maximum view and sunshine. Capitola's Venetian Court was the nation's first condominium and is a model of small home living. Mobile home parks used to be affordable housing until the infamous billionaire Sam Zell of Chicago bought up mobile home parks nationwide, jacking up the rent sometimes by thousands of dollars. This included De Anza Mobile Home Park above Natural Bridges State Beach. And in 2003, after 4 years of litigation with Santa Cruz, a federal court declared the city's rent control ordinance to be unconstitutional. De Anza homeowners were forced into a settlement allowing a 34-year lease at the previous rents, but when sold, the rent skyrocketed and the equity in their mobile home disappears, plunging in value from, say, $200,000 to $20,000. Instead of being an anomaly, corporate investors began buying up entire neighborhoods of affordable homes and turning them into high-priced rentals. So along with new apartment towers, this promises a future of corporate landlords controlling prices. House flippers made a show of taking affordable housing and making it unaffordable. Instead of protecting against abuses, in 2017, the state legislature passed Senate Bill 35 to punish jurisdictions that didn't meet the state's housing goals. Any developer who met the bare minimum standard of the act for a housing project would receive mandatory approval and could ignore local height limits, design guidelines, CEQA, environmental impact reports, landmark protections, and environmental concerns. But Santa Cruz wasn't guilty of rejecting housing projects, but only that it accepted all housing projects that came before it, which unfortunately weren't enough. The trouble with a law exempting CEQA is that it presupposes negative impacts on the quality of life. Exempting environmental impact reports presupposes it will produce unmitigated environmental impacts. And exempting compatibility requirements presupposes the project is incompatible. For Santa Cruz, the first SB 35 test case was a skyscraper proposed for the Hilltop Shopping Center at 831 Water Street. This was an important archaeological site, the center of the historic Villa de Branciforte, which had been described as an opportunity site for interpreting the state's birthplace of Spanish democracy. Yet the developer proposed a freeway vernacular style building, 5 to 6 stories tall, that would overshadow the Belvedere Terrace neighborhood of 22 one-story and 6 two-story homes. I pointed out that a more acceptable apartment complex design had been built at the foot of the hill, and that aesthetics are the one thing that make large projects more acceptable. But minimum standards was the state's mandate, which is also corporate style. Where once Santa Cruz was an advocate of solar access to streets, now had projects promoting dark streets by tearing down landmarks for clustered high-rises on a riparian corridor in the high water table of the river percolatrix zone, vulnerable to soil liquefaction and levee breach. Recently, developers have proposed getting rid of CEQA or rewriting it. But it's not CEQA that's hurting the construction trade, nor historic preservation, and not Santa Cruz guidelines. In San Jose, the city that can never say no to development, the cost of construction has gone up due to interest rates at 20-year high. What was affordable to build when interest rates were 3% is impossible trying to borrow at 9 or 10% to underwrite a project. Louis Morante, Vice President of Public Policy at the Bay Area Council, described the local building market as in a death spiral, where fewer projects, reduced available labor, and labor reductions reduce available projects. Many developers won't build high-rises, which must be paid for all at once, but are building townhomes that can be built a few at a time at the developer's own pace. SB 35 is designed to make the voters feel helpless, but Google is now on trial for being a monopoly. They're accused of silencing competing interests through coerced agreements to the extent that the company no longer needs to innovate. By that definition, SB 35 has created monopoly powers by silencing the voters and ignoring their feedback and regulations and doing only the minimum standards. What a perfect time for an antitrust lawsuit. When other towns were being overwhelmed by development, Santa Cruz planned instead for slow growth, sustainability, protecting the village quality of our towns, stopped freeway expansion from dividing and destroying neighborhoods, used historic restoration to beautify the existing building stock as a tourist destination. Santa Cruz stopped high-rise construction from transforming the West Cliff into Miami Beach, called for solar, excuse me, called for solar access through height limits, green belted the city, protected open space, became a Tree City USA, land banked our agricultural areas against sprawl, and conserved nature. Even with slow growth, experts say tiny Santa Cruz was to be fully built out by the year 2000. The county has made an industry of attracting people to Santa Cruz to enjoy our mountains, redwood canyons, fertile valleys, and coastline. Both our top economies are scenic, tourism and agriculture. Yet even without these advantages, SF Gate magazine noted in 2018 that the exact same house would cost twice as much if built beside the ocean as it would built inland. The most desirable place to live in America are two states dominated by shoreline. These are California, the third largest state in land size with 840 miles of coastline, and Hawaii, the fourth smallest state in land size, yet with 750 miles of coastline. California and Hawaii are called lifestyle states, where people make sacrifices to have quality of life as their top priority, despite the cost of living or a tight jobs market. During the pandemic lockdown, some COVID refugees moved from more densely populated big cities into less crowded places like Santa Cruz County, because if you're going to work from home on Zoom, you'd rather be living in a place that prioritizes lifestyle needs over freeway access. In 2011, Dan Buettner went on Oprah promoting his book, Thrive, Finding Happiness the Blue Zone Way. He coined the term Blue Zone in a 2005 National Geographic article to designate areas of the world with a higher ratio of human longevity. These inhabitants thrive on a life of moderate exercise, healthy diets, a strong social life, good coping skills, and an upbeat spiritual outlook. In other words, they were happy. Buettner began studying the places that create these blue zones and realized that some communities were already designed to encourage a healthy, happy lifestyle. Buettner featured San Luis Obispo on Oprah as one of the nation's happiest towns. Like Santa Cruz, San Luis Obispo is an agricultural tourism college economy. To offset the car culture's polluting, sedentary fast food lifestyle, social isolation, and stress-inducing commutes, in 1970, San Luis Obispo underwent a pedestrian makeover. They widened sidewalks, created a plaza, biking, hiking trails, sidewalk cafes, banned drive-through fast food and public smoking. The poor jobs market makes it a sacrifice to live there, but it was worth it to enjoy a pedestrian lifestyle in a beautiful place. They promoted cultural values and their own orchestra, concert hall, museums, and entertainment venues. The arts and beautiful architecture and rich community life. While a throwback to the village concept, it set a trend for designing, While a throwback to the village concept, it set a trend for designing blue zone communities for optimal happiness, de-emphasizing car culture elements, and improving pedestrian amenities. Having things within walking and biking distance put people in a position for social interaction. The more you know your neighbors and townsfolk, the safer you feel, and happy neighbors increases your own happiness. The similarities to Santa Cruz makes one wonder how we stack up. Since 2007, the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk has received the Golden Ticket Award so frequently as America's Best Boardwalk, it was declared the best of the best for maintaining a delightful historic amusement park in a natural setting. The University of California at Santa Cruz was declared the most influential college in astrophysics in 2008, the sixth most influential college in financial matters in 2010, and Forbes called it one of the 14 most beautiful campuses in the world. Founded in 1965, UCSC was already designed with blue zone elements. As a cluster of colleges on a walkable, bikeable campus in a state of nature. Meanwhile, Atlantic Magazine declared Santa Cruz the fifth most artistic city in America in 2011 and the second healthiest city in America in 2012. Then in 2017, Dan Buettner and Gallup's social scientists created an index to rank the 25 happiest cities in America for the National Geographic. San Luis Obispo ranked number 5. Yet the combined Santa Cruz-Watsonville area came in as the second happiest city in America after Boulder, Colorado. They were followed by number 6, San Jose, number 13, Salinas, number 17, the San Francisco Bay Area. Many felt after saving downtown Santa Cruz in 1969 with the Pacific Garden Mall Historic District, only to have it destroyed by the 1989 earthquake, that the public process to establish guidelines for compatible new construction had, after a long, difficult rebuilding, been worth it with the designation of second happiest city in America. As a tourist community, Santa Cruz has developed a sharing lifestyle. It also has a high degree of participation in local, state, and national political issues. There's an innate sense of optimism that no matter how difficult things get, there's always a democratic solution. It has been said that Santa Cruzans don't have opinions, but rather convictions, leading the political conversation to get heated at times, especially around preservation, conservation, and development. But that only shows how deeply we love this community and want to protect its quality of life. We need to avoid the unhealthy lifestyle of constant anger, vitriol, scapegoating, and militant pessimism. Without respect, there is no quality of life. We need to show respect for the environment, respect for our heritage, respect for each other, and especially respect for the voters and the democratic process that keeps us engaged. Love, Santa Cruz. Thank you so much. And now I guess it's time for questions. Am I?
Yep. So as usual, if you have any questions for Ross, why don't you go ahead and put them in the Q&A, and that way we can keep track of them.
Well, be sure to let me know when there are questions.
Absolutely.
I don't see any on my board.
Nope, not right now.
Okay.
People, it takes them a moment to craft their questions after the presentation ends. Victor, would you like to go ahead and read them off? Are you still around? Victor was just provided a new computer, so might be having some tricky. So I'll go ahead and read your first question since we can't hear Victor. So if you're talking, Victor, we can't hear you. It says, care to wade into the East Side versus Midtown subject?
All I can say is the only issue here is people don't like having a name forced on them. We saw that with the Cabrillo College debate. It wasn't whether it was a good or bad name, but rather the manner in which it was presented.
Victor, is your mic working yet?
Can you hear me now?
We can, yes.
Yes, thank you.
What email address is available for questions and further discussion with Ross? That's up to you, Ross.
Oh, well, don't you have an email for this webinar?
No, I suppose they could email the library or the Genealogical Society. I mean, unless you wanted to provide everyone here your email. We've got 35 folks online and 10 in the meeting room. So,
well, as much as I love to hear from you, I get 85 emails a day, and it's impossible for me to get through them. So,
yeah,
getting more would not help me. Right, I spend my time writing.
Perfectly understandable. Yeah, I guess funnel them through the library, or would it be okay to funnel them through the Genealogical Society?
Yes, you can email our society.
Okay. Another question is, who did the ranking of happiest cities?
That was Dan Buettner's group of social scientists. I don't have the direct statistic here that I quoted from. Oh, Gallup poll.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one is, someone said, thanks for the presentation. That came from Joe Hall.
Well, thanks, Joe.
Most folks I know are totally frustrated with the traffic. I'm in
Yes.
Aptos and hesitate to go to Santa Cruz. Any suggestions about traffic?
We need walkable cities, and we need public transportation that's convenient. I mean, I can't get any more detailed than that at the moment.
So that is, that's all the questions we have at this time.
All righty. Well, thanks everybody so much for attending. Sorry my voice isn't hanging on.
Well,
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Ross, for this fascinating glimpse into the people and the stories that have helped shape this unique place we call home. There are no handouts today's program, but Mr. Ross Gibson's program has been recorded and it will soon be available at the Santa Cruz Public Library's YouTube channel, where you can view it again. There's a link in the chat to the library's YouTube site. Thank you all for being here in today's program. Please join us for our next program, Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024 at 1 p.m. Gail Burke, a member of our society, will lead an interactive program on drawing out your memories. The January program will be in person in the upstairs meeting room in the downtown Santa Cruz Library. We plan to make this a hybrid program so that attendees from other geographic areas can participate via Zoom. If you plan to attend the January program in person, there is no need to register. If you attend virtually, you may register to receive the Zoom link via the Santa Cruz Public Library's event calendar. To register for our program, please visit the Santa Cruz Public Library's homepage at santacruzpl.org. Scroll down to the calendars for upcoming events. To register, all you need to do is enter your first and last name, your email address, then click optional yes box, which allows the Genealogical Society of Santa Cruz to send you more information about a variety of events that you might be interested in attending. Once you click the blue registration button, you'll receive the Zoom information for the next program. We also invite you to visit the Genealogy Society's website at scgensoe.org. When you can visit the genealogy website, you will find our membership application form there. If you're not already a member, we cordially invite you to join. Dues continue to be a reasonable rate of $25 a year. Our membership runs from July 1st through June 30th. If you already are a member and you haven't renewed your membership, please send us your dues promptly and invite a friend to join too. Thank you so much for joining today's program.
I have one question that popped in late.
Yeah.
If you would like to, it says, can you talk briefly about the train that went from San Jose to Santa Cruz?
Well, that was the Suntan Special, and it used to go over the mountain, and then the track was torn up from the summit to Los Gatos, and so the track had to go around up through Watsonville, but it was still very popular. I think it was like $1.50. No, yeah, $1.50 for a round trip, something amazing like that. And we tried to get it revived several years back, and there's on and off again proposals to bring back the Suntan Special. Thanks for the question.
And thanks. Sorry to sorry to bug you, but I felt that popped in right during Leslie's thing, and I just thought, well, while we had you here.
Yeah, we have one more question.
Okay.
Do you want me to read it off? Okay.
Let me see if you've got it. I didn't see it come in.
Okay, this one's from Ron. I have noticed two different street names in the Seabright neighborhood. Idaho Street also has Paloma in the sign, in the curbing.
Idaho Street is Paloma Street. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Do you know any of the history of that?
I'm afraid those are two names that I'm not familiar with as street names. I've tried to study the history of Seabright, but those in particular don't. I'm as mystified as you.
All right. Well, thank you.
My pleasure.
You could shoot that to the library as a question. And from the library's website, and we could go into the Polks directories and probably figure out when that changed.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ross.
Sure. Loved it.
And if you'd like to submit your question, you can go to the Santa Cruz Public Library's website, santacruzpl.org, and email in your questions using the Ask Us button. So up at the top in the green bar, there's a little question mark and it says Ask Us. It's to the left of your orange My Account button. So if you have questions about this or anything else, this is how you go about submitting your question. One of our librarians, such as Victor, can respond to your question. All right, that does indeed look like the end of the Q&A now, Ross. Thank you so much for your presentation. That was great.
Oh, my pleasure.
And thank you for joining us, everyone.
Thank you.
And stop recording.